Okay, activity within the light orb with controls. On the first video, you saw a lot more pulsing and moving of the light because I didn't have it on a tripod and the marbles on something that held them perfectly still. But this time I do. And you see there's not near as much action. But I believe the reason for that is because with the slight movement of my hand, I kept getting a different angle of the light that is in the orb, which gave it that sensation of pulsing very quickly. But this would pulse too if it weren't as slow. This slows down the action because the colors do change, and a more rapid change would seem like a pulsing or like some little living creature within the light. Now, another thing that was said was that perhaps the marble is just picking up the light, the colors, not the light, but the colors that are in the room. And I do have a lot of colors of different objects in my room. But I am filming this in a dark room, and nothing on the wall glows that would send its light over to my camera. Of course, the light that's illuminating a certain area that I'm picking up, these rays of light, could be maybe picking up some light, some color from the room. And marbles are good for, looking through and seeing colors that are already there. But this is the color that's in the light orb itself as it comes from the light source. And I will show you why I know that to be true before I run this movie. Because, let me see if I can bring it up here. Okay, this here is another picture that I took without looking through a marble. I just took this picture of the light. Now, you can see in this picture the light source and all these orbs coming forth from it. And when I see this with my eyes and not the camera's eyes, I see it just a little bit different. I see these orbs coming out as like teardrop shapes, and they're elongated, and then they become more like the typical teardrop, and then as they go out further, like this roundness of an orb that you see here in this picture. And then when they are in this orb shape, they have much maneuverability because they can seemingly, it seems to me that they're of their own volition moving about in way more kinds of ways than you can hardly imagine. They can turn themselves. They're like a pretzel. They can turn in any direction. And the reason I know it's not the light, it's not the color of things that are in my room that's coming through in these orbs, is because as they come out of the light, they're already full of color. You can see that just a little bit in this, that some of them have color in them already. And when I'm using my eyes to look at it, determined by the way I move my focus on this, I can make those orbs go right back into the light and come out and go back in. It depends on how I've got my head turned and my eyes focused. And as I see them come out, they already have kind of a landscape of color, sometimes just black and white, and sometimes very bright colors, and sometimes just a white. So I know that it's not the objects on the wall that are picking up the light through the marble when I look through the marble at the light. I do say that there's colors that are, like on my computer, there's a green light that stays on all the time. And when I'm looking at orbs and I am near that part of the room where that green light is, that green light will filter in through what I'm looking at and give it all a shade of green. If it were a purple light, it would give it a shade of purple. So it does pick up other lights that color what you see inside the orb. Now, I want to get on to the movie that I made. And here's the orb that I decided after I finally got everything adjusted so that the The orb was still, because the camera was still, and the object I looked through, the little glass marbles, were still. I had them rigged up to be perfectly still, and the light source did not change anything in any way. And so I got this still picture. This is a movie actually, and you will see it still changes, although it doesn't pulse like it did when I held it in my hand. And I even I was talking last night about what I was seeing. So all that pulsing activity is when you move it and it gets a still different view of the orb.
Nothing has changed. Everything is holding it perfectly still. The camera on its tripod.
I hope people are finding this interesting, this looking at orbs. Sometimes I'm met with a little resistance and like, oh, you're crazy to look at this and think it's really something.
Hands literally touching the camera.
Now my hands aren't touching the camera here. Everything is set up to be perfectly still as a tripod can hold anything. And you see, there's movement in there of color.
Different ones who viewed this said, well, that's just what a marble will do when you look through a glass marble.
And the people who say that hardly ever look through glass marbles, to tell you the truth. Only someone as curious as myself does that sort of thing.
I mean, the pulsing is all diminished somewhat completely. But I do see some definition forming inside of this.
You see, there's those three, and then up here there's these shadows here that weren't there before. And the colors definitely are changing. You happen to listen to me twice. Once on the recording and once now.
And all the conditions are exactly the same as when I began.
There is definitely light full of color. And it's not just like the prisms you see from a crystal hanging in a window and the sunlight filtering through and making splashes of the color all over the wall.
Much of the movement and the pulsation I saw in the last time that, well, the very first time, that number 1 of this series, was due to the movement that my body holding it and the camera not being on a tripod. All of that was due to that. Still, it was amazing.
It is beautiful, the colors that are in these orbs.
Halo brown things that I saw in there, I don't know how moving it
I'm talking about
would have caused those
this little
to
round thing here, and there's a few more that show up now and then.
On the screen after I've taken it off the camera, I'll be able to look up close and see if there's any.
See, there's one forming right there and one right there.
Round areas.
There's one right there.
In this one, it does seem to me
some right in
the
here.
color has changed up, and there is definitely, most definitely, it looks different now than it did just a minute ago. But I'm going to continue this for exactly 10 minutes and see what all might transpire inside of this orb that I have stationary here before me. No part of my body is touching it, the camera, or the light, or the little glass beads, or the glass marbles, rather. It took me forever to get it set up this way.
Yeah, you should have seen me last night
do
I
see
even had a jar of peanut butter. I had something stationed too.
colors working in it.
Very primitive, my means and methods. Funny even. But you can conduct experiments with the crudest of instruments and get good
It's a little
results.
less dramatic when you hold everything still like this. But I do believe it is going to show us a better example of the movement inside the orb once you've stilled it as much as you can. And this is as much as I can.
Of course, a lot of this is attributed to the camera because it has some definite things that are part of the camera, are things sticking to the lens on the inside.
Everything is perfectly still.
But that doesn't make all this color. I mean, I admit, yes, the camera has its flaws.
Colors alternate and change inside of this. I'm seeing a difference.
I'm going to continue doing experiments with orbs and subject them to different conditions,
I'm going to do one thing.
because I think there's something really important we have to learn from these
See if
orbs.
there's anything from my body
Yeah, touch it now.
changes this. So I'm going to put my finger slightly on the camera. Slightly touching it. To see if there's any transfer. I'm very slightly touching the camera now.
And I did jiggle it a bit just from touching the camera just with one finger.
I'm not holding it in place. I just have one finger slightly touching the top of it.
And now you're seeing lines. See those lines that go through right there? Didn't see them before.
Now I'll take the finger away.
That almost looks like a little face right there. I do enjoy myself studying this.
8 minutes, so I'm going to go all the way up till 10 minutes.
Oh, now just to silence this.
I have shown myself that I didn't do a true test when I was holding it.
Actually, I did do it. I turned the voice off and let it continue to run. Actually, I did do a true test. It was a true test for when you hold it in your hand. And I think that it's we who are the movers of this illusion all around us that is a light show. It's our focus, it's our way of looking at things, it's our movement of our hands that give motion to the light. So the other video was just as well to prove that. Look now how many circles there are. There's circles all around in there. There's one opening up. Now, that's not some color in my room. Let's see, I'll use my imagination and say that is a portal, an opening where a being from the light is looking through at me. If I sound crazy, let me sound a little crazier. Because I can believe easily that truth is stranger than fiction. I mean, we can make up something if we just want to fool other people, just off the top of our head. But, and here I've held it in my hand a little bit again, that's why it's shaking. But the truth is, we can't make up something that's any stranger than what is really the truth. And I think what is really the truth, and this is my conjecture, is that all around us, the what looks like empty space is filled with activity of light. And the use of the marbles looking through them just gives me different views of different feels of those spectrums of light that are not just like, you know, the rainbow spectrum that goes through a crystal that shines in your room when you have it hanging in the window. Those have a pretty uniformity of color each and every time that they come through prisms like that. But this, you've seen some of the still pictures of these light orbs, and the colors are not in any uniform way. They're just first one way and then the other. Some of them black and white and some of them not. And that's just to tell you of the ones that the camera sees. I can't show you the ones that I see with my eyes. Obviously, you would have to have my eyes to see that. But I think my eyes have become attuned to being able to see the light like other people don't see it right yet. But they probably someday, real soon, will be seeing light in way different ways than they have ever seen light before. So I think that video ended here, and I will bring this down. I will show you just in closing a few other pictures. Oh, I did the wrong thing. I want to bring the next one up. Okay. So you see these light orbs. There's no marbles involved in this. Once they get out of the light, and my eyes put them back in if I want to, it's all us that's determining what light does in some way that we don't understand about ourselves. But see how they do that? These little light orbs zoom here and zoom there, and as they zoom, they make kind of a worm-like looking structure. And who knows why they go this way or that way. It's like they have their own mind about which way they will move about. And they do move about very much. Now, oh yeah, I did get to zoom that one in. You see this light orb here? How it's turning, moving? Okay. Okay, there's a good example right here. Now this one that I'm pointing to, this one comes out as a long shaft. And it's full of color already. And then you see here these two. This one's already full of color. It's color from the light itself. And the light has many variations of color in it. Here's another good one. And see how this one seems to be dissolving? They dissolve into one another. And now this is the strangest thing, and I'm going to try to give you a word picture of it. This one's on its side. Look at that. It looks like a little coin on its side. But here's what they do when I'm looking at my eyes, with my eyes at this instead of with the camera's eyes. The colors that are in it fall out. I see them and they just fall right out of it. And then if I focus my eyes a little different, all those colors come right back in it. And they can fall out from above and they can fall out from beneath. But I don't think I have any examples of that. Here's a few more examples of the movement of the orbs after they've come out of the light. And see that little green in the background? That's part of my computer. So it lends its light to what you see here. Here's a light shaft coming through these orbs right here. Okay, let me see if I can catch some more. Oh, and look at this one. This red light is something my camera makes because of the mechanisms of the camera. I always seem to have this hovering around somewhere because it comes with the camera. It has a little thing to it that also looks like a little nipple. You don't see that here though. But there's a light ray coming right through it. You can see where it comes out on this side, but you don't see the other side so much. And see, this one's already forming little patterns of light in it, especially this one right here that I'm pointing to. And you see the ray, the shaft of light going through this one. Okay, this one right here, this little orb, that I've captured there a little bit of the one that I say is a blue and gray world of a light orb. But you don't see the blue quite as distinctly as I do, but I see this almost every time I look at light. I see this little orb that has blue and gray in it. Wait a minute, I've already shown that one. Oh, yeah, I forgot about this picture. There's the red one I told you, it's always there. And pay no attention to that one because that is the camera doing that, for sure. But see this orb here, how it's emptying out its whole self into another orb, but sometimes they empty out in a different looking way that I don't have an example of though. And look at these. And that, and this one. You can see them coming out here, almost in a teardrop fashion, but not quite. Look at this one, how it has moved, and you see the result of its movements. Oh, and there's my little blue and gray world of an orb showing up pretty brightly right there. And this one has colors that this one doesn't have, or that one. So I am definitely sure it's not the colors of things in my room that is coming through in these orbs. Oops, that's something I made. That's something I made. I'm always taking pictures of my creations. Okay, now, here's a lot of orb activity. And what I am looking at here that I got all these beautiful colors is just a mobile that I have hanging over my bed that is wrapped, a lot of the parts of it are wrapped in this real shiny ribbon-like material that is very, well, I don't know the word for it, but it's a holographic-like ribbon in the first place. So it captures light, the ribbon does, of various colors. There's some more of that, and some more. And that's what's making it, this thing that's hanging above my bed. And I wonder what those 3 rings are. I forget what that is. I'll have to look up there and see what that might be. But this is that ribbon. I wrapped all these parts of wire that I made this particular structure out of with that ribbon. And when you get the lights off and you put your camera on it and you get it up real close, like I've told you, that's the way I capture a lot of this, then you get the orbs that reflect out of that ribbon. And in this case, this ribbon does determine the color, because this is shiny ribbon. This is like when you put a light on it, you're putting a light on something that will reflect back to you the colors because of the holographic nature of this ribbon. And look at this one. This is that same thing. That's the ribbon up close without the light being off, so, and with the flash on, so that you can see how the ribbon is just wound round and round the wires there. Now this is the ribbon again, looking that way. Huh. Well, I'm at 22 minutes and I'm in a portion of this a bunch of colors of mine, but I'll tell you what this is. I started with this little pentagon right in the center, and when you put 5 around it, you get the pentagon bigger. See? You see how it's bigger? And this center one and this arrangement with the 5 around it will never repeat itself again, no matter how far out you go. Laying these pentagons in this particular fashion that I'm laying them. See, it comes out again. It actually makes bigger and bigger pentagons, but they're broken up like this one would be a big one, except that right here one come in, and you could see it continued. If you look at the little star and say, okay, draw a line there and a line there. And each time with a different layer, as you come around, it adds 5. Each and every time it adds 5 to the count of how many it takes to go around. And this goes out, and I've never been able to go out much further than this because of it takes up too much space. This is a very large little thing that you see here. It covers a big part of the wall. I put it in my closet because it's just too big for my wall. I think I need a museum to put all the things I make in. There's a close-up of that. And there's one that's on my ceiling. Same design. And you see it shoots out from this pentagon shape 10 rays. You could see that like rays if you have the eye to see that. It looks like there's 10 of these things that move out with the lights all turned in a certain direction. I mean, not the lights, but the little black spaces in between these all going out. And it just gets ever wider as it goes out. And I think it would continue on as far as I could take it and never repeat that center one. Which to me is a very wonderful thing, because this is the center. This is like the God spot. And we're all in the same pattern, but we're not God in the center. We extend from God in the center, and we look in the same image as the one that centers us all. I think the God force centers each and every thing and every person and every object, because everything's made of light. And these could be like little photons of light. You could look at them that way. Anyway, I'm always making things. And when I make something, it has to mean something to me. I can't just make it and say, oh, this is pretty, I'll put it this way. No, it has to have some kind of symbol, some kind of meaning attached to it, or I don't even want to make it. Anyway, I have to end this, and I will be talking at you again. But for now, this is the Dove Lady, over and out.